I live in Georgia, the state, in a rural town not far from a major city. There's a set of woods that's behind our house, and it divides two neighborhoods, and it's about a mile wide, if that. Strange occurrences have always surrounded these woods. Small things like random trash, tarps, etc. I should mention it's more swampy marsh than woods, so it makes camping in there impossible. One night, I was taking our dog out. He stays in the back half of the house due to him not liking other dogs. I took him out the side door and walked around the house to the fence. For some reason, when we left the house, he was absolutely terrified. He didn't want to go out. Very unusual for a dog who's quick to snatch someone's soul if prompted. Not thinking about it, we pushed onward. After he tinkled, we walked back. This is when I noticed it, or rather, heard it. Crunching of leaves. At first I thought it was one of our dozen cats on the property, until I realized it was matching my steps. If I walked, you could hear it walking. If I stopped, it stopped. There's a small clearing between the woods where one shed is. That's when we saw it. My dog was first to see something, and then I saw I don't know, creature. It was taller than the shed, so maybe a good 8 feet tall, and it darted across the clearing at a crazy fast speed. My dog, who again isn't scared of anything, bolts so fast I dropped his leash and he ran to the door, whining. I was quickly behind him. Once we were inside, I quickly bolted the door and ran to tell my girlfriend what happened. She immediately wanted to investigate, saying it's probably a woodland creature. Armed with 2 flashlights, we went out the front door. As we walked toward the woodline, we could hear something moving around. It sounded maybe 200 yards away. As we scanned with our flashlight, we saw nothing, but kept hearing it. And then we heard it get closer and closer, until it was maybe 20 feet away. Still nothing. No eyes, not even an animal call. Just rustling. My girlfriend, now scared, heads for the house. I decided to check with the neighbors to see if maybe one of their many dogs got out. When I arrived at his house, my neighbor, who we'll call Dave, explained that all his dogs were accounted for. Curious, he came to investigate. This is when I noticed that whatever this thing was followed me along the woodline to Dave's house, and was now behind Dave's house. Gun in hand, we went back to his yard, scanning for something. We could hear it rustling, or maybe running, about 100 yards away, in thick swampy woods. Way too thick for a person to walk, let alone to run in. Then it stopped. It was dead silent. Scanning on edge, we hear and see nothing. And then bam, all of a sudden, it was 5 feet in front of us, sprinting at me. It slammed the fence so hard, it rocked it back and forth. Dave, scared shitless, shot randomly at, well, nothing. We never saw it. Never had it get close to us again. Again, as I mentioned, the woods are thick. Too thick to run in. So what teleported so silently in front of us and slammed the gate? Spooked, we were about to run. Then we heard it. It was human in nature, but not English. It sounded alien-like. not a known language. Dave, a hunter for the last 40 years, still to this day can't explain what that was. Anyway, after we heard that, we bolted. He covered me and I ran to my house. Not 10 minutes later, we both hear a loud explosion coming from the woods. It shook our houses and flickered our power. I ran outside to see what it was, and of course nothing. But when Dave came out and confirmed he felt the same thing, we were both once again terrified. Moments later, a few strangers from the neighborhood came driving down to our cul-de-sac, and they all agreed the blast sound they heard came from behind our house. 911 was called and 2 police officers interviewed us separately. Our stories matched. The responding officers refused to go anywhere near the woods. They took the report and left. To this day, we're still not sure what that encounter was. Also, Dave doesn't go outside at night anymore. It spooked him that bad. The next night, earlier in the day, my mother-in-law, a police officer for a town 40 minutes away, installed 2 motion-activated trail cams along the wood's edge. They were brand new. Keep that detail in mind. Thinking maybe we'd see something, we waited for nightfall. Later that evening, I went outside to feed our outdoor cats. That's when I heard it again. Rustling. This time, not taking any chances, I ran inside and told everyone what I heard. They all piled by the back door and urged me to go out there and look. Reluctantly, I agreed. I took my flashlight and walked to the edge of the woods, knowing there was a trail cam covering this area, and figured if it got me, I would be on camera and my sacrifice wouldn't be for nothing. As I got to the wood's edge, I could hear it, still rustling. I'm shaken at this point, because I could tell it was maybe less than 15 yards in front of me. Everyone at the door was watching me and could hear this thing. Then, it got quiet. For a moment, it was gone. Or so I thought. Just as I am scanning with my flashlight, trying desperately to see a normal woodland creature so I can laugh this whole thing away, boom. Something fell out of the tree and hit the ground so hard it shook the soil beneath my feet. It was so close that I was sure it was going to lunge out of the brush and snag me. I dropped my flashlight and ran 100 yards back to the house in what felt like 2 seconds. I screamed, "Get in the house!" As everyone was already scampering into the house, they heard and felt the thud too. Our neighbor Dave called my mother-in-law to ask what that loud crash was. For him to have heard it as well, over 700 yards away, is insane to me. Once the adrenaline died down, we realized that this happened right next to the trail cam. Problem solved. We got evidence of this thing. The next morning, we checked the SD cards on the trail cams. They have videos up until 11:47 p.m. The rest is corrupted. They were both brand new trail cams and SD cards. We reset everything and set them back up. And to this day, we've still never encountered that creature again, nor caught anything on the camera. It was approximately 2 weeks ago, just before Halloween. Now, let me start off by saying, I'm not an avid outdoorsman. I love hiking, and I've spent countless hours in my city's 16 square mile state park nature reserve / whatever you want to call it. But I'm not a mountain man by any means. The park is home to several indigenous mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles, and is full of small ponds, thick brush, and even swampy marshes in spots. There are designated hiking and biking trails that sprawl the area, but there are also several wild areas that aren't really maintained or used. Being that I have an adventurous streak, I also hate being around groups of people. I often find myself in these less ventured or wild areas. Now, it's worth noting that I never really felt uncomfortable in this park. It's kind of like my safe place. I go there to get away, decompress after work, or just to be alone sometimes. It feels like a second home in ways. Anyway, enough background information. I'm rambling. I just pulled up to one of the less commonly fished ponds, Beaver Lake, and I intended to circle to the far side, 3/4 of a mile from my truck, on one of the hiking trails that goes right next to the tree line and then into the tree line, and then push further onto one of the old horse trails. Now, this horse trail in particular doesn't get used much anymore. I can't say why for sure, but I've heard a myriad of different reasons from different people. Most logical explanation is that it's just not as convenient to get to anymore. And it gets pretty marshy when it rains. I'd be able to follow the normal hiking trail for the first 3/4 mile, but I'd have to fork left, off the trail, once it went in the tree line. The gate to the old horse trail was about 500 yards to my 9 o'clock. From there, just through an overgrown thicket and up a straight hill, I made my way over the 4-foot gate and started exploring. I had about an hour and a half before sunset, and I have a strict fuck the woods at night policy, so I was watching the time. My main goal for this adventure was to snap some pictures of the area for a project I've been working on. And I'll admit, I was more distracted than I typically am. Anyway, close to an hour passed. I'd gotten some good shots, and I figured now was a good time for my egress. It'd take me close to 30 minutes to get back to my truck, and I wasn't keen on getting stuck in an unfamiliar area at night. I sat my backpack down on a stump, dropped to one knee, and started packing my stuff. I'm not sure what the catalyst was, but I suddenly felt this terrible sense of dread. I slowly turned and scanned my surroundings. Nothing seemed out of place. I stood up and grabbed my bag. When I took a step forward, a leaf crunched under my boot, and I realized that everything was dead silent. Now, as I said above, I'm not an avid outdoorsman by any means, but I know well enough that silence like this is an indication that a predator is nearby, and you need to quickly but calmly make your way out of the area and stay vigilant. It's worth noting that while mountain lions and black bear are not technically indigenous to my area, there have been more than enough caught and relocated for it to be a valid concern. I've been stalked by a mountain lion on one other occasion, and this felt eerily similar. So that was at the forefront of my mind. I'd been moving for probably about 5 minutes, and everything honestly seemed fine. I'd lulled myself into believing that I was overreacting and that everything was fine. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. Good. Right? Wrong. By this point, the trail was completely overgrown on both sides. I could see clearly behind me and a decent way ahead, but my left and right may as well have been fall-colored walls. I must have gotten lost in thought for a moment because I tripped on a root and ate shit. As I was picking myself up, I started hearing a soft, I don't know, cooing or chittering off to my right. It sounded like a mix between a dove and the predator. It would start with a coo or a yelp and end with this weird chittering sound. I'm actually sitting here trying to replicate it, and I sound ridiculous. I'm not sure my throat is even capable of recreating it. Anyway, I'm out of shape, and there's no way I'm outrunning anything. So I scrambled up, planted my feet, and tried to make myself look as menacing as a fat 22-year-old with a backpack and glasses can look. About 100 yards ahead of me, which would have originally been behind me had I not fallen, so toward where I had taken the pics and was moving away from, I saw the underbrush start to shake, and it sounded like something was tearing through it. I only had maybe 20 minutes of daylight at this point, and it would take me at least that long to make my way back to my truck. So, I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. Naturally, I turned around, and I fucking booked it, knowing good and damned well that I can run for maybe half a mile. 3/4 of a mile if something's trying to kill me. Maybe. I could barely hear anything over my own footfalls and the sound of my heart pounding. But whatever it was chasing me through the underbush, and it was gaining on me. It maybe had 15 yards behind me at this point, and I still had a ways to go. I don't know if fear kept me going or what, but I reached deeper and just kept running. My breath got shallow and my vision started blurring, and I was honestly about to collapse when I saw the gate to the horse trail about 300 yards ahead of me. This thing is right on top of me by now, and as soon as I came within arm's reach of the gate, I planted my foot on the bottom rung and launched myself over it. My landing was not graceful. I landed on my right shoulder and tumbled several yards down the hill and into a puddle of muck. I wasn't thinking straight now, and I stood up shakily and started making my way toward the tree line and pond. I knew what direction to go in, and I didn't even bother finding the hiking trail. I just crashed through the brush and overgrowth like some kind of barbarian. I didn't care about the cuts and scrapes or the massive amount of noise I was making. My only thought was to get out. The chittering noises had stopped, but I still heard something moving in the brush at the top of the hill. It wasn't trying to be quiet anymore either. I finally broke through the tree line and could see my truck parked across the pond at the top of the hill. I finally took a deep breath and started slowly walking away from the tree line. The ominous feeling lifted, and I started making my way up the trail alongside the tree line. I was able to catch my breath for about 15 seconds. I heard that god-awful cooing and chittering behind me again, and I turned back to look at the tree line behind me. So, at the point, there's a trail leading me into the tree line in front of me, tree line to my right, water to my left, and a trail leading alongside the tree line and around the pond to the cars behind me. The direction I needed to go, / was going before I heard the sounds again. The underbrush at the tree line ahead of me started to shake, and the fear took over. I'm thankful that my bag is waterproof and that my phone is water resistant, because I jumped in the pond and I swam across. I never really told this story to anyone in my personal life. they'd probably think I'm crazy, and I doubt they'd consider me credible, especially given my interest in Bigfoot and other cryptids. I don't know what was stalking me that day. I know I wound up cold, wet, and a bit shaken up. I also know I've not been back to that part of the park, and I can't come up with a good explanation. Beaver Lake is off limits to me for a while. I think I'll just continue exploring and hanging out on the slightly more populated side of the park. I've lived in Connecticut since I was 8 years old. Me and a large group of kids were constantly in the woods that bordered on the back of our homes, doing usual kid stuff. There was a cliff we would scale down easily to get to a river. There were old cars, old washers, dryers, you name it. So it started out really innocently. I would occasionally see what I thought was a whitish gray face poking out from behind the trees, looking at us playing or what have you. Then, once I saw a whole half of a body with no clothes, same color skin, step out from a tree I was walking towards, and I freaked out and left the woods. I never told anyone, because I thought I was losing my mind, to be honest. Fast forward about 2 years, and my best friend's older sister is refusing to come with us to a bonfire in the woods. And finally, she tells us that she won't come because there's a weird creature out there, and that she saw it, watching her one day. I asked what she meant, and she described in full detail the same thing I had seen. After a few more probing questions, I admitted I'd seen it too. Never went back in the woods. Eventually, me and my parents moved within the same town. And all is good. I don't see anything funky for a long while. Fast forward to me being 19. It's me and my best friend's car. I'm in front, got 3 other best friends in the back. It's 2 a.m. or so. We decided we were going to go creep ourselves out by driving down this long, haunted road in the middle of the woods. My best friend wants to scare everyone, so he's stopping the car occasionally and turning off the headlights. We're all creeped, but having fun until the last time he does it, and turn the headlights back on. And there, in the middle of this gravel road, is a giant, white, humanoid figure on all fours that just wants to take the fuck off. I basically start crying from fear, because I recognize that off-white skin color and face shape. Best friend, who is driving, screamed and the rest of the car panics, even though only me and the driver saw. And he takes the fuck off. This sets into motion the most widespread sightings that I know of between me and people related to me. About a month later, my boyfriend drops me off at home after a date, and he takes this long winding road, straight home every time. About 15 minutes later, he calls me and is all freaked out, telling me he saw this huge, weird-looking white animal on the side of the road. I never told him about me ever seeing these weird things. We were a new couple and, once again, didn't want him to think I was nuts. He said it looked like it had a human face and was skinny. The next thing that happened was my friend going to these orchards one night to watch a meteor shower with our group of friends, but I couldn't make it. This was about a week after my boyfriend's things. They're out there at 12:30ish at night, and the whole group except one decided to go rob the orchard of their peaches, leaving my one friend up top alone. She calls me, freaking the hell out, telling me she saw what looked like a giant but furless polar bear near her car, and she was panicking because she couldn't find anyone and was yelling for them. Eventually she did, and they left. The very last sighting I had was with my best friend from the car sighting. Me and G spent a lot of time at his grandfather's house caring for him, as he was 97 with a broken hip, and I was a CNA. One night, we're there late. Grandpa's well into sleep, and we keep thinking we hear taps on the windows and on the siding of the house. Nothing too crazy, so we say fuck it and decide to go smoke on the back porch and see what's up. All is calm, except at the edge of the backyard. There's a steep cliff, unclimbable by humans even, and at the bottom, it's a river, and we hear all this shuffling. So we're like, what the hell could that be on a cliff like that? We inch closer and closer until we look down this cliff, and it's a white creature crawling up the cliff. I've never been so scared. We ran inside, called his uncle who lived 3 doors down. He had guns, and begged him to come over. And he did, and nothing was around. All of these sightings happened within a 6-week period, and since, nothing. I'm 27 now. I've been with the same boyfriend for 7 years. My best friend G has been my best friend and still is for 9 years. The other girl at the orchard and the older sister of my friend I've known for 20 years. These people saw what I saw, and for once, I don't feel so crazy. I'm just more worried about when I will see them next. Also, this all happened within a 15-mile radius. My friends and I used to camp a lot in the El Dorado National Forest. We had a spot along Sapayago Springs we used to camp at a lot. One weekend, we decided to go there for a 3-day foraging camp. We brought in MREs in case we couldn't find anything, some guns, and some supplies to set up shelter. But that's about it. First night was chill. We cooked a bunch of crawdads and a squirrel my buddy shot, drank a few beers we brought, and slept fine. Next day, something felt off to me. One of my friends who was with me, and I, had had some really creepy experiences in this part of the forest in the past, and it felt a bit like those. Forest was dead silent, and you felt like something was watching you. I grew up in the woods, so I know the signs of a predator, but this felt different than a bear or a mountain lion. When night fell, my friends went 200 yards or so up the stream to do some stuff, and I was alone in camp. The feeling got even stronger, so I built up the fire nice and big and grabbed a gun. I kept hearing faint voices from the woods in the opposite direction of where my friends went. They were low, indistinct sounds, but they were creeping me out majorly. And my buddies had taken the only 2 flashlights. Poor planning in hindsight. As I peered out into the darkness, I caught a glimpse of something moving 50 yards or so out in the trees. I snapped the rifle to my shoulder and got the scope on it. It was pretty dark, and the only light was from the fire. But I could see the outline of what I was aiming at. It looked human, but was on all fours, and its arms seemed a lot longer than they should. It stood a bit like an ape, but very low to the ground. I only saw it for a second before it lopped off deeper into the woods. After I lost track of it, I'd hear light rustling in different directions around the camp. Leaves scuffling, the occasional twig breaking, always away from where my friends went. 180 degrees on the other side of the camp from their departure. I got the sense that, whatever it was stalking me. I kept the fire high and was staying sharp, looking out into the woods. But I didn't see it again. My buddies came back, about 10 minutes later, to find me a paranoid wreck, glassing the tree lines with a scope. I told them what had happened, and they got quiet. Then told me the reason they came back when they did is they started hearing the same shit I did by where they were at, and it spooked them. We spent the second night of our trip with a big-ass fire and 3 lookouts. Nobody slept that night. In the morning, we broke camp as quickly as we could and hightailed it out of there. We never camped in that spot again. This happened years ago. I believe I was in 7th grade. I am now preparing to start college. I was sharing my room with my little brothers, as well as a bunk bed. I had the top bunk. It was summer, and since it got really stuffy in the room, we would install screen windows. I, being a light sleeper, woke up in the middle of the night to hear light rhythmic scratching on the screen and a raspy breathing. I rolled onto my stomach and peered over the side of my bed. My pillow was directly across from the window, and I saw exactly what you described. It was extremely pale and had long, thin limbs, no clothing or hair. The face was flat and round, and I couldn't really make out a nose or visible ears. Very thin lips. The eyes were sunken. At the time, I thought they were glowing, but now I believe it was just eye shine. It was lightly scratching on the screen and looking around the room. I never got the feeling that it noticed me as I watched it, though. It wasn't trying to get in either. It wasn't feverish. It was just making noise. I watched it in silent fear for I would guess a minute, but it probably wasn't even that long. Eventually, I crawled backwards down the ladder and into the living room, where I spent the rest of the night curled up on the couch. As for height, it had to have been at least 7 feet tall, because it was hunched over at the window, and the window itself is about 5 feet off the ground. There was also another incident a couple of months later, where my family and I went on a camping trip with my Boy Scouts troop. One of the kids owned property out in the middle of nowhere. I lived in central Illinois, and we set up camp deep into their forest. I woke up in our big family tent and heard the light scratching again, long and rhythmic, on the nylon. I could see impressions of long fingers being made on the wall. I just lay there quietly until it moved away, and I even heard it repeating its process on other tents in the campsite before it wandered off. I didn't say anything until my dad pulled me aside the next morning and said he heard the same thing, which woke him up. One last detail. Before we went to sleep in our tents, there was a long haunting scream from the woods, It sounded like a hybrid of a person and some animal being killed and howling, one last sound of pain. Everything fell silent. Everyone just stood there. Keep in mind that these were experienced woodsmen, and they hadn't heard anything like that before in their lives. Fox vocalization is noticeably canid. Mountain lion sounds are distinctly feline. This was entirely unnatural. Hi everyone, first time posting here. Looking for some explanations as to what this may have been. About 2 or 3 years ago, I was with some friends in my car outside one of my friends' houses. It was around 9 p.m. in wintertime, so relatively dark out, but clear weather. There were 5 of us in the car, myself and a friend in the passenger seat, as well as 3 friends sitting in the middle row. It's an SUV, and we were talking about some random topic, when all of a sudden, I felt an intense feeling go down my spine, like we were being watched. I turned to my friend in the passenger seat, and he looked up at me at the same time, like he had just seen a ghost. I asked him if he felt that too, and he said yes. None of my other friends in the back felt anything. We felt really strange, but ignored it and kept talking. A few minutes later, the feeling came back stronger than before, and once again, my friend and I looked at each other at the same time. He looked right past me, out the driver's side window, which my back was to, and told me not to turn around. None of my other friends saw anything, but he said there was something out there, and I felt some sort of presence behind me. We took turns describing to each other what we sensed it looked like, and we were, for sure, both sensing/seeing the same thing. It was pure white and humanoid, but the details of what we sensed are fuzzy to me. After a minute or so, it went away, and we were totally spooked. This is where it gets weirder. My friend and I both felt the presence making circles around the car, and we began to both see green glowing circles moving quickly around it. It's hard to explain, but we couldn't really see them. It was more knowing they were there. They began to move faster and we were freaking the hell out. Then all of a sudden, they disappeared. Once again, we both saw/felt these, but nobody in the back did. Then, passenger seat friend and I were leaning back to talk to the middle row, when all of a sudden on the sidewalk, behind the car, there was a flash of white light, and a creature sprinting down towards us. It was pure white, bipedal, somewhat humanoid and very tall and lanky. I'm gonna guess it was probably 7 feet tall. It had a horse-shaped head, long black thin hair, black eyes and claws. My friend and I, in the front, screamed simultaneously, starting the car, and got the hell out of there. Once we were far, far away, we once again took turns describing to each other what we saw, and we were both on point with each other's descriptions. I took everyone home. Then as I was driving home, I still felt the presence behind me, and I couldn't tell if it was in the car or not. But whenever I go to a stop sign or light, I felt it catching up, so I sped the rest of the way back. Once I got home, it was gone. Both my friend and I could sense that whatever it was wasn't there to kill us or anything. just to make its presence known. Nothing like it has happened before or since. The only relevant connecting factor between the passenger seat friend and I, that those in the back did not share, is that we're both Christian at the time. Hi guys, thanks for listening to this. I hope you've enjoyed these cryptid stories, and if you did, go on and give this a like. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. Thanks guys.